Hello and welcome, Exiles. Do you want to summon some lightsabers as your own personal army? Well, this might be the place for you. A lot of people have asked me to make a league start setup for the Animate weapon of self-reflection Necromancer using Energy Blade, basically the ability to summon little lightsabers to fight for you as your army. This is the alternate version of the gem, Animate weapon of self-reflection. Now, I want to preface this with, I did this as a second or third or fourth character of the league with some gear. I have videos on it if you want to see. This was in Mercenaries League where I made a high-end character that got to 50,000 ES. This was a more defensive Ephemeral Edge setup, as well as I did a much more budget setup that was like 10k ES with E-Blade on. That's what this is right here. Just to give you an idea or context for various budget levels. Keep in mind, this, for example, this budget version of the character, this had a Doriani Merc with minus 100 lightning res, okay? Now, I'm going to reference this. Doriani Merc adds 50% more HP to monster life and then sets their enemy res to negative 100 along with a few other bonuses. For example, this Doriani Merc was giving us discipline. So it was giving us a little bit more ES than we would normally have access to. So if you were talking about the current league, how do you look at a world where you don't have the Doriani Merc? Well, one, you have to start targeting enemy elemental res. I would recommend things like conductivity, elemental weakness. I'm running a dual curse on this setup, as well as I would recommend potentially investing into pen. For example, on those trees, I don't think I grabbed the pen 8 res node, but if you don't have a Doriani's Merc, that pen 8 res node, that mastery, becomes very, very good. Another thing to consider that has changed since that last league is accuracy. On this character, I've spent points on the accuracy mastery. I spent points on accuracy these small nodes. I anointed Grave Pact because it had accuracy. I went and ran arrogance with precision. The good news is, next league, we won't need accuracy. In the patch notes, they said attack minions now always hit. This is a very good buff. So losing Doriani's Merc, very big nerf. You can counterbalance it with some minus res. It's not going to be the same damage output to Doriani's Merc, but you can counterbalance it for sure. You know, like start investing into minus res. And for the accuracy, that is a nice counter buff, which helps you have to not invest into any accuracy at all, and you always had 100% hit chance. Okay, so those are the big things that changed for the Merc. Or for the from Mercenary League for the Animate weapon of self-reflection. Now, as for the character itself, when it comes to bloodlines, I was looking through a lot of the bloodlines, and ultimately, I'm not very convinced. Most of them are too situational to be usable, or they just outright aren't very relevant for the character. The one node, when I looked through the bloodlines that felt like it could be relevant for the character, is once you start pushing endgame content, your Animate weapons start to die. If you're pushing like really hard T17s, this node right here, Prolonged Servitude, this would work out pretty well in that sort of content. If you notice your Animate weapons are dying on a regular basis, I was just running Blessed Rebirth, which gives like 4 seconds of immunity upon summoning them. This would add another 6 seconds to their lifespan where they're doing damage. So potentially you could trade the Commander of Darkness wheel, which gives a bit of percent damage, a bit of attack speed, and some Ellie res for guaranteed at least 10 seconds of uptime per summon. So that's one of the nodes I looked at. Ultimately, I didn't think very many of the Bloodline Ascendancies were relevant for this character. So take that what you will. I'd probably still go these 4 labs to start out with. Maybe later on when you start pushing T17s and they start dying, that's when you consider maybe swapping for the Prolonged Servitude, but that's kind of up to you. Another thing to note is this is assuming a very, very budget level character. For example, I don't have any Spectre set up in this character, not because Spectres aren't good, but because I'm just assuming you haven't made the money to buy perfect corpses yet. Perfect corpses are very, very strong. Perfect corpses give, a lot of these give specific auras, or they give specific buffs. I'm going to highlight a few of them that are very good for Animate weapon of self-reflection. Hulking Miscreation gives 100% damage, 30% attack and cast speed. This buff is not 100% uptime. I'm told it's like 50% uptime, but it's still very, very sizable. Spirit of Fortune gives lucky lightning damage and wrath. That is flat damage. Forest Warrior gives like onslaught, I believe. If I'm remembering it correctly. Yeah, Forest Warrior gives occult and onslaught. Warlord gives endurance charges and vitality. There's a lot of Spectres that are really good in terms of buffs to your anime weapons, and you're going to want to look into those. But for right now, I'm just assuming there are no corpses on trade. We're just going for a potato early game setup, and that's what this is. I'm going to reference each piece of gear and why I'm using them. Perkle's Toe is just for that lucky damage. This is something that you want to swap out as soon as you get a perfect Spirit of Fortune. It's a placeholder item that gets you that lucky damage early. That's all it's there for. Later on, you want to be using a rare amulet, preferably. Vol's Vision. Why am I using this early game? It's a very good access point to flat regen to start off with. One of the nice things about this build is with this node here, Bone Barrier and Ghost Reaver, all the minions will leech to us a bunch of ES, and I just want some consistent sustain source for life, and Vol's Vision is a pretty low investment way to get flat life into the build. I also did hybrid armor ES pieces to start off with for just budget gearing, and the reason I did this, the thought process is you can leverage this mastery here, 100% armor and energy shield on body armor if your helmet, gloves, and boots have armor and energy shield, and you're just using a cheapo Twilight Regalia. It's just kind of a cheap way to get some early ES. That's the thought process here. All you need to do to make a cheapo Twilight Regalia that's like 700 ES plus is do a couple Reforged defenses and then just craft percent ES or flat ES, whichever one it's lacking. It is very easy to do. Just to showcase this real quick of how easy it is to make a 700-800 ES chess piece, I'll just do this real quick. It's just you're looking for one or the other in terms of flat or high ES. Okay, so that we just hit, but let's say, for example, you don't hit percent. So like this, for example, okay, well, it has a full prefix, but this would be an example where if you hit good flat or good percent, now you'll see I'm hitting like 800 plus almost every click. But besides that, if you don't hit a good ES roll, or you just only hit one okay ES roll, you can always benchcraft the other one. And I keep hitting. Okay, here's a good example. Open prefix. No, it's not an open prefix. I want to showcase this of how easy it is for you to, I mean, I keep just hitting over. Okay, here's an example where I have an open prefix where I had 1% ES mod. I didn't hit energy shield, and I could just go ahead and craft energy shield. Boom, it's 800. Obviously, when I was trying to do that, I hit 700, 800 ES multiple times, just reforging defense. Because with the Twilight Regalia base 300, it doesn't take too much to get a high percentage on there. But just a couple of reforged defenses, you hit percent or you hit flat, and then you just craft the other one you don't have on the item, and all of a sudden you're 800 ES. So that's one thing we're doing. We're calculating for leveraging how much ES you can get on a Twilight Regalia early, and we're just trying to leverage that mastery there. This is just a cheap solution for some early ES. That's all that's doing for us, and that's why that's there. Another thing is, on this character, we are using a two-handed weapon. Why are we doing this? Well, for one, Energy Blade with a two-handed weapon, wherever I have it socketed in my character, if I could find it, with a two-handed weapon has 70% more base damage, essentially. So it's way higher base damage. For a budget, I think this is a great way to go initially if you want to go more single target. The other upside of this is you can grab any random melee 2-link. It could be a staff, it could be an axe, it could be a sword, it can be corrupted, and it just works. Like you might say, oh, Lance, if that's corrupted, I can't use Vols. Well, the fun fact is, right now, you'll see our regen. If you look, our life regen is 58. But if I transform an Energy Blade, all of a sudden I get that 400 regen from Vol's Vision. What's happening here is the item is no longer considered corrupted. It's a new item. It's Energy Blade. It's a different entity. So it's a fun way to get yourself a very cheap 6-link. You're talking the price of 20 fusings on League Start. Usually it should be around 5 chaos to get yourself a 6-link. The colors 4 red, 1 blue, 1 green work. You could also do 2 blue and have like lightning pen instead of multi-strike. There's quite a few different supports that work for this character. So keep that in mind. You can be a little bit flexible with the colors, and it's a good way to get a cheap early 6-link. That's one of the reasons I like E-Blade on a League Starter, is when you're going two-handed E-Blade, it's really cheap to get your initial 6-link to play whatever it is you're planning on playing. Now, the last unique specific item we have on this list is Shavron's Revelations. This is the one item where I give a little bit of caution. This is an item that is a T2. That means it's somewhat rare. If this is not popular to use on League Start, it's pretty cheap. Like you'll see on here, it's 10C all of Mercenary League. And Mercenary League had Ephemeral Edge being somewhat popular during it because Doriani's Merc. I don't think Trickster Ephemeral Edge will be as popular this league. I think it'll take quite a big hit. So my guess is it'll probably be around this price or cheaper. We will see. The reason for this is in the left ring slot, it gives a bunch of flat ES. We don't have much recharge or regen on our build, and we have leech from our minions. So this solves two problems. A, it gives us some nice ES for our character for getting our initial base damage for E-Blade. And B, it also gives us a high amount of mana regen. Initially, mana sustain for these guys, they can be kind of expensive and they're hard to sustain casting them. So one of the benefits is this solves that mana issue. Now, granted, these guys do have quite a long duration. If you look at Animate Weapon of Self-Reflection, they last a good, what does it say? It's like 30 seconds, 32 seconds. So you don't really need to spam cast them all at once. It's a little bit unnecessary. I just think it's a nice quality of life thing if you can just get them out really fast at the start of your maps. So you can make your mind up if you feel like that's necessary. You could also just run a mana flask as well. So that is some of the stuff going on over there. Real quick, gonna cut into this video because I forgot to go over it. With this character's reservations, we went a lot more offensively / generic with it in terms of I went for purity of elements just as a solution to ailments, but quite frankly, we're overcapped for res, so purity of elements is probably not the play. Late game of the character, I like the idea of going Tempest Shield, Flesh and Stone, getting block immune from shock, and then you could do Brine King for freeze and chill reduction, and that solves most of your important ailments. You can kind of make that decision for yourself. But for early game, I went for haste, quality of life, speed. You ultimately could take these two 50% reservations and go for more defensive stuff like Flesh and Stone, like Arctic Armor, like potentially something like Determination or Grace, and force those in. I just want to keep that out there, that this character's for League Start is definitely heavy onto the just trying to have good damage early, not necessarily a great defensive setup. I really think the play is to go one-hand E-Blade plus block later on, or potentially you could also, instead of going block via having a shield, you can go Bone Offering. I am currently running Flesh Offering. There's nothing wrong with going Bone Offering there. It is quite strong for getting you block into the build. But yeah, I just wanted to reference that right now, that this is leveraging a much more offensive early setup. If you get a 6-link chest piece and start looking at a shield, all of a sudden your defensive options go way up because you can start looking at recover on block, block cap, Tempest Shield, stuff like that, which feels pretty dang good defensively. Anyways, just wanted to cut that in to reference that. This is a much more on the glassy side of things as a setup. Now, let's go ahead and showcase what this character looks like in a map. Holy, sorry about this. I'm struggling a little bit here because I am sick. And let's go ahead and do a T15 map just to showcase what this character looks like. This is, of course, I'm trying to represent what it would roughly be around a level 90 character. I have to spend extra points to get accuracy nodes, which you won't need to do that in League. And yeah, I'll have a POB linking to the setup I have here so you can think whatever you want of it or judge it however you will. But the way this character plays is essentially you will run around, have your E-Blades attack for you. Their built-in behavior is just aggressive as it is. I just realized I'm playing with Ruthless and not Melee Splash. This is a gem link swap you can do if you're going to go from like doing, let's say you're doing a boss like Exarch or Eater, some single target thing. That's when you want to run Ruthless over Melee Splash. Otherwise, Melee Splash feels a lot better for clear. Like hopefully you could see there's a clear difference between how I was clearing before and after there. I just forgot I hadn't done that yet. I think my most recent test was I did like a minnow kill on stream a couple days ago and I had Ruthless in from that and I just forgot about it. But anyways, the play style is put some minions down, they'll go around, they'll slice everything, and you're just kind of jumping around with Leap Slam. You have a decent amount of attack speed from the Ascendancy, or not Ascendancy point, the passive point that gives you attack speed based on minion attack speed. One of the nice things about this character is you have really good Leap Slam speed, even while being not an attack build, because you want to invest a lot into like minion attack speed throughout your character, and that directly correlates with how fast your Leap Slam fills. So you have a pretty feels good Leap Slam in terms of movement. See if we can get these guys attacking the boss so we can give you guys a look at the single target. That's what it looks like on a T15 boss. This gear is not particularly good. At least I would say it wasn't. You can judge it for yourself what you think of it. These are basically just some chuck together rares and a couple of uniques that are just nice early placeholders. Again, I want to stress later on, you want to swap to having some real Spectres or swap to the double Animate weapon helmet. Stuff like that goes a long way, but this was just some cheap gear to show you what it looks like on a very early setup. Now, as for leveling this through the campaign, I have been told from some people in chat, if you get the gem, it works fine in the campaign. I have not tested this, so I would caution you and say just level as SRS, because that's I think something more reliable. People have guides on just doing League Start SRS, stuff like that. But it might just work to use in the campaign. And the reason I haven't tested that is, quite frankly, I'm running out of time. I'm going to be starting an assassin, and I got kind of sick, which took out a lot of my time to get stuff done. And so this is a bit of a thrown together video, but it should point you in the right direction. If you wanted to League Start, Animate, Self-Reflection, Necromancer, it works pretty well in terms of a League Start setting, in terms of early gearing, because Trade League, you could buy a nice little 6 link for 5C, you get a couple of cheap uniques, and you're off to the races. That's the thought process, at least. If you're wondering about the clusters, these are 9 and 10 passive clusters where I basically just used one alchemy orb on and then chaos. They're not good, okay? But this is the thing you want to go for. Clusters are your bread and butter for minion builds. There's not a lot of places for percent minion damage on the tree, so you end up wanting to go clusters. The reason I have them there is to showcase, hey, you want to start getting minion speed and minion damage on clusters. These aren't particularly good clusters. I just wanted to make sure that it's clear you want to go for clusters sooner than later when you start getting to level 80 plus. That's all that's for. These aren't particularly good clusters, but this should give you an idea of an outlined initial tree to start hybrid plus a bit of ES for your E-Blade, have some base damage, and it works out pretty well going straight into doing some red maps. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy this look at a League Start angle towards Animate Weapon of Self-Reflection. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good one, and peace out, guys.